Mr. Alistair Burt, Minister of State for the Middle East, welcome to Al-Arabiya, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to start speaking about Yemen. I just had yesterday the special envoy, your British compatriot, Martin Griffiths, and we spoke about his plans for the Yemen. And he spoke about confidence building measures, that he have three-pronged confidence building measures concerning Sana'a opening, Sana'a airport, detainees release, and payment of salaries. Then he hopes to convene consultation and talks. How do you see this going forward?
We think Martin Griffiths really has to succeed. I mean, this is a terrible conflict. Its origins are clear in terms of an insurgency to remove a legitimate government and the response of that government and the coalition. But the impact on Yemen is significant. We support the Special Envoy's attempts to bring it to a negotiated conclusion because we remain adamant that there is not a military solution. Of course, military pressure in negotiations, we all understand the reality of that, but this is a conflict that really has to stop. And we think it's absolutely essential to get behind his efforts, and it will need goodwill on all sides to take the steps that are necessary to descale the conflict and find the answer. And we think that he provides by far the best opportunity. Rather than another resolution in the UN Security Council, his efforts, we think, constitute the best opportunity.
But after the failure of the stalling of the consultation in Geneva, because the Houthis didn't turn up for the talks, how can you ensure that they will take part and convince them that it's in their interest, the Yemeni interest, everybody's interest, to sit around the table? Because this is not the first time.
No, we were immensely disappointed that the Houthi were not represented in Geneva. It is a matter in which only they can be engaged. If they truly care for the Yemeni people, if they want to be part of a future of Yemen, which ultimately must be decided by the Yemeni people, if there is a reconstitution of the national dialogue, what part can they expect to be asked to play by the Yemeni people if they have not done everything they can to bring the conflict to a conclusion? So if they do not take part in the Geneva talks, how can they go and seek support for people in the future? So we will do everything we can with every pressure, and we'll use all those who have any access to them to say that if there is a genuine sense of desire to see the Yemeni people supported for the future, to create a new future, then your politics are a part of this. And we will do that, and we will put on pressure with others to see if they will respond.
There's no doubt that the intransigence of the Houthis is strengthened by the supply and finance that they get from outside. How can the world stop the supply of missiles that comes across the borders by sea or by land? It doesn't matter, but it comes and they use it against civilians in Saudi Arabia. How can we stop that flow of missiles? Your Prime Minister spoke about it in the Security Council, and the meddling of Iran in the Middle Eastern affairs also was spoken about in the Security Council. But how can we deal with that?
Well, there are two or three different ways, some a little bit more open than others. The UN's inspection mechanism, UNVIM, is very important to make sure that vessels that are taking food and supplies to Yemen are clear and are not being abused and harbouring missiles. That's one very open thing that can be done. But those that are supplying weapons, and this is in contravention of the United Nations resolution not to be supplying weapons into Yemen, they have been warned pretty directly about the impact of what's happening. And of course, should a missile land in Saudi Arabia and hit a significant target, then the whole balance of the region changes. This is a terrible risk to run. So our appeal has been there should be no external weapons going into Yemen, in contradiction of the resolution. Those who have done so are taking a terrible risk, and they should use all the leverage that they have to seek to bring this to an end by a negotiated conclusion, and not continue to do what they're doing. They're running a terrible risk.
I'd like to move to Syria. How do you see the new knot of the third group in the Constitutional Committee? The Can it be solved?
The international community has got to be absolutely resolute in backing Stefan de Mistura in his selection of this third basket, this third list. You can't have a situation where one of the lists is controlled by one of the parties, this independent list, this group of mixture of civil society and others. If it was to be seen to be dominated by the regime, it would lose its credibility, and therefore the constitutional settlement that everyone wishes to see would also lack credibility. So it's not in anyone's interest to do this. I met with Stefan de Mistura yesterday. We had the special meeting this morning convened by High Representative Mogherini, and we made very clear our support for him and our belief that he can use this particular period of time that has now become available because of the agreement on Idlib to take a political opportunity. Now, if the parties involved want to see that political solution, then they will use this opportunity too. It can't last long. Stefan was clear, he wants something moving by the end of October, and in all these things people have to move, and accordingly if there is a negotiation it implies that not everybody gets everything. People have to make concessions in order to get the greater whole, and to see the conflict brought to an end without a further humanitarian tragedy, to be on the pathway to the constitutional settlement that everyone knows has to come if Syria is to be stable in the future. Here is an opportunity. So why would the regime go against the considered advice of the special envoy in this particular case? That's what we will be stressing.
How seriously do you take the threat by Ayatollah Khamenei against Saudi Arabia, Emirates and the United States, blaming them for the attacks that took place in Ahwaz against the parade? How seriously shall we take these threats?
The attack was a terrible attack. The United Kingdom condemns unreservedly any terrorist attack that takes the lives of innocent people, particularly women and children. We are, of course, looking into whatever is alleged by Iran in relation to any relationships or any information that there may be about the attacks. We don't have that information at this particular stage, so we're not in a position to substantiate the allegations or anything else. We hope that terror will be rooted out throughout the region with no backers, no supporters, because unless that is done, states cannot be stable and cannot create the relationship with their neighbours, which they need to have if the conflicts in the region are to come to an end.
Alistair Burt, Minister of State for the Middle East, I thank you, sir, for your time, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
for the
sir.
interview.
Thank you, sir.